Hi everyone, I hope you're well. This is CoinsKid, just going on to Bitcoin, bigger the CoinsKid crew. So if you're looking for macro buy signals, if you're looking for these opportunities in this run that's potentially coming for Bitcoin right now, this point in the market, like a relay to, this is where I think altcoins go berserk. And I'm going to show you a couple of reasons why I do think that over the next few months leading towards the end of the year here. Okay, so if you're looking for those signals, if you're looking for golden opportunities, go to coinskid.com, go to the index, there's a little filter here, macro buy signals. So click that and you'll see this is a list right now. If we go all the way down to the bottom, you can clearly see at the moment there are 170 entries right now that are presenting macro buy signals for you. Okay, so let's dive into the charts and see what we can see. But these are macro data points, and you know, for those people who've been on the channel, they'll know how accurate these data points can be. For example, there was a macro buy signal on Ethereum recently and TON, and both of them coins have done extremely well against herd mentality. Let's dive into the charts, see what we can see. Okay, looking at S&P 500, it has backed up Bitcoin's move, which is really, really good. And like I said to you, you know, if Bitcoin comes up and gets its ass back above a 20-week MA, which is your thick yellow line, and the S&P fails to do the same, then it could be some kind of bull trap on Bitcoin. But the fact that we're seeing it from both charts right now, especially the king of risk, this chart that you're looking at right now, the S&P 500, it is backing up Bitcoin's move. So it's decreasing the probability, okay, it's some kind of, you know, ABC or correction or retracement to the highs before another drop to the downside, because we're seeing the same move from the S&P 500. So it's really, really important over the next few weeks that we do see this 20-week EMA being held as support and any kind of pullbacks to it. You know, we don't necessarily want to fall under the ribbon, the 20-week EMA again, because again, that increases the probability, okay, you've got some kind of bull trap, and at that point, you break down, turn it into resistance, and you've got another drop here in this particular chart. The EMAs, like I've taught you, are absolute boss. For example, we're holding the EMAs, and we drop down, turn it into resistance, and look at that big drop right there. Again, you know, if we go back to this time frame here, we've got this A into a B, into a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 setup. So you've got your A, B, C zigzag correction, and just here I think we've had the same thing. We've got an A into a B into a C, and right now we're breaking bull. Technically we're looking at a beautiful move to the upside where, you know, we're doing pretty much what we did there. We've got a sell signal which come towards the end of the correction, and we've got the buy signal to indicate the new impulsive move to the upside. So my primary at the moment, okay, for the S&P 500 is the fact that we entered some kind of whopping correction in late 2021 where risk came off the table. Obviously, you know, you saw Bitcoin and XRP roll over at that particular point. This came down in a 5-wave overlapping zigzaggy corrective move. It was basically a broadening bottom, which I relayed to you. We broke out in January of 2023. We backtested this support in March, and like I said to you, this is a key thing here in this chart. I think this is a clue to a big run in risk, especially for Bitcoin and XRP. And I was looking at, you know, all-time highs for Bitcoin and obviously XRP, but XRP's failed to do it because, like I said to you, I think XRP, for anyone paying attention, XRP will actually break out towards the end of this run in the S&P 500. So this is what I'm looking at in confluence with XRP and Bitcoin and, you know, altcoins running. I think we've got a little bit of confidence right now that what we've got in this particular chart is a wave 1 into a 2, the breakout, the all-time highs 3. You've had a 4, and right now this is the final 5th wave coming up into these levels here. We start to see this over the next few months. That's it. I think we've got an increased probability of a macro bear market in, you know, risk, and obviously minnows, which is crypto, Bitcoin, XRP, so on and so forth. So from here, I think we've had a 1 into a 2 into a 3 into a 4, and right now in a final 5th wave territory as we are looking at Bitcoin. And right towards the end of the, you know, Bitcoin's run, this is where we start to see in this leg here. This is where we start to see your altcoins going vertical, your chain links, your VChains, your Cardanos, you know, your XRPs making all-time highs. So this is my primary at the moment, and obviously I'm looking for the invalidation in the short term. The thing that will begin to invalidate this, you know, potential run of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 setup in the S&P 500, your last leg basically to the upside since its bottom in late 2022, you know, would be if we start to break down here, if we start to lose a 20-week EMA, if we start to lose a ribbon on the daily, start to print another sell dot, you know, you're in trouble. And basically you've got a bigger correction than I actually envision here with S&P 500, and this was actually the top. So that is not currently my primary because I'm looking at clues and other things. We've got a Bitcoin dominance that's not broke down yet. We've not seen the waterfall, like I said to you. We've not seen the characteristics of the top where, you know, basically Bitcoin comes up like this, breaks down, makes a lower high, total coming up like this, which is basically your altcoins, breaks down and continues. We've not seen that characteristic of the top, which is what we saw here and in the previous upcycle in 2017 into early 2018. So we've not seen this, but I think it could come in this last leg here that we're seeing for as a potential setup for the S&P 500. So my primary 1 ABC 2, 3 ABC 4, right now final 5th wave coming up into these levels here where I do think we could trigger a bear market in this particular chart. And obviously for those people who've been been paying attention, this is a king of risk. This enters a bear market. Okay, you're in trouble for crypto right now, and wouldn't necessarily be wanting to hold on. But equally, if we take a look at the crystal ball right now, it's showing you, okay, look at this. The liquidity left the market just way back in May 2022. This was coming down the stairs. It bottomed down here. Then this broke out to the upside. So did this pulled back. So did this broke out and then pulled back, and so is this. And right now this is breaking out again. So basically, you know, we're beginning to catch it up. We're looking like, you know, forming some kind of catch up to the golden line, which is a crystal ball, which is based on M2 global money supply. So the S&P 500 right now is giving us clues, but what we've got to see on the weekly time frame is from this point right now, it can't afford to break down below the weekly 20 EMA, which is currently 5723, and the S&P 500 is currently trading at 5963. So from here right now, if you take a look, the all-time high for the S&P 500 is roughly around about 3.2%. Off this low they experienced in April, roughly up a whopping 23%. So, you know, like I said to you, towards the end of this run here, this is typically where we start to see the waterfall in the S&P 500, which is always typically, if we look at historical data right there in the charts, it does usually come towards the end of a correction. But what we've got to see is get our ass back up with 20. It's a huge move. Hold it in any kind of correction, and then you break out. So possibly a 1 into a pullback 2 into a 3, 4, 5 to these levels here. We're looking at a 2 fib at 6634 and a 2.272 at 7237. But at this point, when we get up there, I will begin to basically take some profit out of crypto, okay, and I relay that to you because I think we're running out of steam in the king of risk, which is your clue to risk on. Basically 1, 2, breakout 3, pullback 4, final 5th wave coming up, and we're looking at exactly the same scenario with Bitcoin as well. So let's dive into the Bitcoin dominance chart right now, because we've not seen something in this cycle which typically we see towards the end of every single cycle as well. Let's dive into the Bitcoin dominance, see what we can see, okay? So one of the key things I'm looking at, there's a couple of things I'm looking at structurally in the charts. One is basically Bitcoin breaking out, having a lower high basically like this, okay? So it has its top, comes in, drops like a stone, comes back up and makes a lower high. But total 2, which is your cryptocurrency market cap excluding Bitcoin, it looks something like this. It comes up into the same high, drops with Bitcoin, but then it breaks out to the upside. And that is characteristics of the top, and I've relayed this to you many times over many years. You know, we saw it just there, and we saw it just there as well, where Bitcoin was breaking down, coming back up, making the lower high, which is your B wave, but the altcoins were, you know, sucking up a lot of that liquidity, where people are converting the Bitcoin into altcoins, and this is where you see the verticals, and we've just not seen it in this cycle. Equally, to accompany that particular structure that we look at in the charts is this waterfall at the same time in the Bitcoin dominance. What we've been doing here for this Bitcoin dominance, we've sort of double bottom down here, we broke out, got the buy signal in the Bitcoin dominance way back there in April 2023, and we've just been trending on the ribbon ever since. We had a little bit of a blip here where we dropped towards the ribbon. You know, we experienced quite a big vertical in a lot of these altcoins way back late last year, but we've not seen, you know, the continued breakdown here, which is what we're looking for, like what we've got there and like what we've got there, you know, the big waterfall in the dominance accompanying basically Bitcoin, lower high, and it drops. Altcoins comes up like that, breaks out, then it drops. That's your alt season right there, accompanied with obviously the waterfall. So we don't see it in all of this season, you know, where Bitcoin's been trending up and doing incredibly well for us. We've not seen a loss of the ribbon, and for anyone that's been paying attention, I've been relaying to you for a very long time, a lot of people jumping up and down saying alt season, but one of the clues will be once you start to see the red sell dot below the ribbon, once you break down below this ribbon with a red sell dot, okay, you've got a potential waterfall in front of you, and that will spell the end of this particular cycle. So the trend is your friend at the moment. If you take a look, we're currently in an uptrend on the Bitcoin dominance. This is roaring up, look at this, holding the ribbon as it goes. We are looking at this potential god candle back test around about 67.65%, and if you take a look way back there on this white line in 2017, that was a trigger for a huge drop. Just in 2021, that was a trigger for a huge drop, and that's around about 71.27%. So it just may be a case that, you know, the Bitcoin dominance is trending up whilst Bitcoin's trending up, looking for this resistance retest. Then we get the big waterfall like what we got there and like what we got there, and if we see that, boom, that's it, your cycle tops in. You know, altcoins are done, and Bitcoin should roll over into, you know, big crash and correction at that point. So let's dive into the Bitcoin chart right now to see what we can see, okay, because it may be on the cusp of a huge inverse head and shoulders pattern, and equally another reversal pattern if it sees a rejection at these highs. Let's dive into the Bitcoin chart now to see what we can see, okay. So looking at Bitcoin on a daily time frame, since the low in November 2022, we've been making this high-low structure here for Bitcoin, and we're doing really well. You know, I've been buying back these drawdowns, like I said to you, and finding reasons why we need to buy the 5 waves of death. reversal patterns. We've got the bumper and run just there, we've got the diamond bottom just there, which is beautiful little pattern that we traded. Equally, we've got the beautiful falling wedge right now, and the 5 waves of death as well. The 5 waves of death on April the 7th, we nailed that buyback, and then boom, we've come up into the resistance. So we keep buying the lows, and we're doing really, really well. For anyone paying attention on this channel, Bitcoin is doing incredibly well for us. But as it starts to come up and run out of steam, this is where I do look at other projects, because this is typically where you can make as much money on the altcoins as you can right towards the end of the cycle. So if my analysis is correct, we're not necessarily seeing the top for this cycle for Bitcoin. We do have another move left to the upside, and equally within that move, we will start to see the waterfall dominance drop down basically, and equally characteristics of the top in where Bitcoin comes up, makes a lower high, comes up like this. Okay, this lower high is where you see in total 2 come with Bitcoin, drops and breaks out. We've not seen any of that characteristics so far for Bitcoin. Okay, and I'll drop the total 2 chart in. I did it in yesterday's video, but this is a really important characteristics of the top we've simply not seen yet, and we've seen it way back here. Here's your top for Bitcoin. You came down here in total 2, you came down in Bitcoin, this made a lower high, total 2 was going absolutely berserk, and you saw all the altcoins and things like that going absolutely vertical at that particular time frame into May as Bitcoin topped in April. So we just don't see it in all of this move from this low here in 2022. You coming up like this, you're not seeing the vertical in total 2 when Bitcoin's retracing. It's continually staying the same, so it's in conjunction. So at the moment we've not seen the characteristics of the top in the altcoins. Will it come? I honestly don't know. I've not got a crystal ball, I can't see into the future. However, I did make this indicator based on global M2 money supply called the crystal ball, which shows liquidity leaving the market in December, double bottom down here and breaking out into the summer and taking out the range highs and taking off in space. And right now we're seeing Bitcoin trying to catch up and do the same. So that could be a clue that eventually down the line, when we start to see the the golden line, which is a crystal ball indicator, drop, that could be the start of a bear market basically. And we'll look at what the data is telling us. We'll look at what the S&P 500 is doing at that time, and so on and so forth. Equally, there's another indicator created called the liquidity dance. So for anyone that's been paying attention, basically liquidity dance is a little secret source that I found for you that signified the top just there, because if you take a look, this is the top for Bitcoin in April of 2021. Came down alt season. What was the liquidity dance doing? It was taking off in space. It was creating higher highs and higher low structure for a very long time. It's only until here where it started to make and break and start to break down. This is where Bitcoin had bottomed and it began its uptrend, as liquidity dance has begun its downtrend, and consistently it is still making these lower highs. So until we start to see these higher highs and higher low structure in the liquidity dance, just like what we did there, again you've got your signal for the top in Bitcoin and obviously crypto as well, and we just don't see it. Just respecting the data right now, liquidity dance is clearly in a downtrend, so keep an eye on that, because I think liquidity dance is a very important leading indicator that will give us a clue to have entered some kind of macro correction as well for Bitcoin. So in the short term, what I'm looking at is possibly a massive run here to $153,000, which is basically the 1.618 Fibonacci extension from this low here to the all-time high there. You come up the stairs like that. And for those people who have been on the channel for a very long time, they will know way back here I created a video called the 5 waves of death, where we've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Bitcoin. I made a video in late 2022 called the 5 waves of death, where my minimal target for Bitcoin was this target here, the 1.272 at 95791. It's got there. It's been an amazing trade for myself and the CoinsKid crew, and I'm looking at 1414 around about $117,000 next, and it will be absolutely amazing if we get to the 1.618 around about $157,000. But at that point, if we start to see liquidity dance doing something like this, then obviously that's a clue that Bitcoin's not going to get there or whatever. So we've got to pay attention to liquidity dance. It's really, really important, because every time we see a spike up, you'll see a bottom on Bitcoin, a spike up, a bottom on Bitcoin, a spike up, a bottom on Bitcoin. It's just a buying opportunity. Whenever you see these spikes up in liquidity dance, it means that liquidity is being withdrawn and then it's put back into the system. So your spikes up are your opportunity in the liquidity dance. So I'll leave you with that. But going forward, your structure, your bull market structure is really simple. There's your higher low, higher low, higher low. Currently your higher low was the April low. If we break down below that, okay, we could begin to entertain the fact that that's some kind of top, but we don't see the signals and the data points that we see at every single cycle top to call that the top. Hope you understand the update. Take care everyone, back to another update on Bitcoin. Stay up, stay strong, stay tuned. Bye bye.